Republicans kick off their four-day convention in Charlotte, North Carolina and Washington today. Now, the party hoping to use this week's national convention as a way to become united in their efforts to re-elect President Donald Trump. So with more on what is in store, let's bring in our Washington Bureau Chief Jackson Proskow. Jackson, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. So let's begin with really what we can expect from the RNC. Who is speaking? And I guess, how will this compare to the DNC last week?
Well, good morning, Anthony. You're right in that the party is united. I think the question is whether they will do anything over the next 4 days to sweep up new supporters or appeal to a broad cross-section of Americans who may be on the fence or may not support Trump right now. The speakers list over the next few nights is sort of a familiar list of faces in Trump's orbit. In fact, there are 6 people with the last name of Trump appearing over the next 4 nights, and the president himself is expected to feature prominently on every single night of the convention leading up to his acceptance speech on Thursday. You'll also see familiar Trump advisors, Trump-friendly politicians, and some everyday Americans who sort of rose to infamy because they've kind of encapsulated Trump's brand of grievance-style politics. For example, the couple from St. Louis who were seen on their front lawn pointing guns at protesters who marched by. They've been invited to speak, so that gives you a flavor for what this week is going to look like. It's also worth pointing out that when it comes to substance and policy, we're not expecting much of that. In fact, Republicans have said they're simply rolling over the party's existing platform from 2016, using it all again in 2020, and really they're running on the idea that whatever the president wants to do, they're fully on board with at this point.
Interesting. So obviously the party and the convention really to showcase the supporters, but interestingly as well, more than 24 former Republicans and Republicans have announced that they are endorsing Joe Biden. What impact will that have on Trump?
That's right, and we're actually expecting more of these sort of ex-Republican endorsements to roll out over the course of the week. Remember last week at the Democrats' convention, we saw a number of prominent Republicans, like Colin Powell, for example, get up and speak at the convention to Democrats about the virtues of voting for Joe Biden. And Democrats have really tried to make the case that he is the kind of Democrat that Republicans can vote for. So expect more of these endorsements to roll out over the course of the week. Trump, though, does not seem fazed by all this. He's made it clear for a very long time now that if you're not with him, you're not really a Republican. And he uses the term RINO, which stands for Republican in name only. And that's what he uses to brand detractors like the 24 who are now speaking up and backing Joe Biden instead of backing him.
Now, protests also underway in Charlotte ahead of the Republican National Convention. What's happening there?
Yeah, there were 4 or 5 people arrested last night, some pepper spray deployed during a confrontation between protesters and police. We expect that things are going to get more and more heated over the next few days, especially here in Washington, where the president will be speaking and where many of his keynote speeches will be happening as well at venues in this city. It's something to watch. It's something that often comes with the territory when it comes to political conventions. Remember that Democrats were largely spared from this because they went all virtual. Last week in Delaware at the venue where Joe Biden did speak, a few Trump-friendly supporters showed up to protest outside the venue, but we're expecting much more and much more widespread protesting ahead of the Republican convention because it does have several physical locations.
Now, also breaking this morning is Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway announced that she is leaving the White House. What are the reasons there? Because as we know, I mean, over the past 4 years, this has been a revolving door of resignations and firings. What's the significance of this situation?
What's different here is that Kellyanne Conway has been with Trump from the beginning, from his candidacy back in 2015, 2016. She's had the title of counselor to the president. She's one of his most ardent defenders. She also has what many would consider to be one of the most perplexing marriages in Washington, D.C., because her husband, George Conway, is about as vocal as you can get when it comes to a Trump critic. And he appears on cable news and he tweets up a storm about his opposition to Donald Trump. He actually works with a group called the Lincoln Project, which is a group of ex-Republicans who run ads targeting Trump, trying to push him out of office. So really 2 diametrically opposed people when it comes to Trump. And caught in the middle of all that is their 15-year-old daughter, who's a social media influencer, who posted yesterday that she is seeking emancipation from both of her parents because she is so upset with the fact that her mother is backing Trump and the relationship she has with her father. It's a mess, and needless to say, this family wants some privacy, and both Conways are stepping back from their respective roles with the White White House and with the anti-White House Lincoln Project to work together as a family to try and overcome this.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jackson. Jackson Proskow joining us from Washington this morning. We appreciate it.